Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series, Rescue the Rockies. And if you're enjoying this series and you don't subscribe to the channel, would certainly appreciate it if you do. And always appreciate a thumbs up or a comment on what you think about what is going on. Our loyal viewers, known as the Worldwide Scouting Department, are very supportive of the channel, and we're always looking to add more of them. And if you were with us for the last episode and you followed things reasonably closely, you may notice that we've magically moved forward all the way through the month of June to July 4th, 2031. And that's because, as sometimes unfortunately happens to me, my recording software glitched out on what was supposed to be the start of the past episode, and when I went to check in on how it was going, I had audio without video, which I thought would be particularly boring for those of you who are viewers of this channel. So unfortunately, some content from the month of June, which was pure gold, if I say so myself, is now lost forever. But we will quickly summarize what happened to our Colorado Rockies over the month of June. You can see we got off to a very poor start after winning the final game of a series at San Diego. We lost 6 of 7 games at home to the Braves and the Cubs. So a rough start to the month made us be feeling bad about things. But as you can see, after that, we were practically unbeatable, losing just 4 games after that over the course of the last 22 days of the month of June. So when all was said and done, we've moved on a few days and we've split our first 2 games in July on the road at the Athletics. But things are in pretty good shape with a 51-32 record just past the halfway point of the season, and we are still in first place in the National League West, and we've still got the best record in baseball. But not everything has gone perfectly for us, unfortunately. And this one is starting to bother me a bit, but Leo Martinez, the 21-year-old now, who we signed to a long extension when he was a minor leaguer a year ago, another relatively significant injury, and he has been banged up since spring training. This one, the most serious, a rotator cuff strain that has kept him out for the last almost a month at this point, and his return from that is still unknown. So basically, Martinez pitched only 1 game since the last time we talked about him, and only went 20 pitches before that rotator cuff strain ended his month of June and cost him some time in July as well. 0-2 record in 4 starts for us, so that's not great. Only 12 innings due to the injuries in 4 starts for us. That's not great either. But we will look at his 3 ERA, his 1.25 whip, his 1.55 ERA plus 90 FIP minus, and the fact that he has been a bit above replacement level in the relatively small sample size that he has pitched for us, and hopefully use that as our assurance that if and when he's healthy, he's still going to be an effective pitcher for us. But with another injury, and as I mentioned at this point, unknown recovery time from that rotator cuff strain, getting a little bit concerned because since the start of spring training, a right elbow strain, couple incidents of back spasms, a viral infection, and now a rotator cuff strain also involving his right arm, shoulder, elbow area. So hopefully he will be able to remain healthy, because he is a guy that we have been planning to build this team around for likely a huge chunk, if not all, of the prospective time we're going to have with the Colorado Rockies in this playthrough. One better piece of news that happened in that strong 18-10 month that our Rockies ended up putting up Gus Nieves continued to have a monster season and was named the National League Batter of the Month in June. Hit .323 with 9 homers, 26 ribbies, and 18 runs scored, and having a monster season. We'll check the leaderboard shortly, and you can see how well he is doing in his quest to lead the league in homers and ribbies for a third time in 4 major league seasons. But as we moved into the month of July and here to today on July 4th, got our midseason review from Charlie Monfort. Very excited with our record. Upset that we haven't signed a hometown player. Happy with our progress as far as improving attendance, but disappointed with what we've done with fan interest and disappointed with our international amateur fines. Overall, he's good with our progress towards goals, happy with our overall performance. This is the final year of our contract, trying to guide the team to a 6th straight playoff appearance here. And right now, we are in reasonably good shape to get that done. Got a request from a new viewer to the channel, welcome aboard Tyler Crippen, to take a look at one of the top free agents from last offseason, Willis Honeybear Alvarez, Cuban player who was a free agent. He ended up signing a very big but very short contract worth over $200 million over 4 years from the Mariners, but he does have an opt-out after next season, and he is off to a very strong start in his career, hitting .281, 20 doubles, 16 homers, and 51 ribbies for Seattle. He's also walked 62 times, so a .424 on-base percentage, a .166 WRC plus, and a 3.2 WAR. Looks they are using him primarily at first base. When we looked at him over the offseason, not that with his price tag he was a realistic target for us in Colorado, but thought that he could certainly be playable at third base, but they're being even more conservative with him defensively and putting him at first, which is really the only position out there where his skill set has him looking like a somewhat above average defensive player. And now we will turn to the official standings here, just past the midway point of the season. As I mentioned, our 51-32 record, the best in baseball. We are 2.5 games up on the Dodgers, who are 48-34. And right now, the Dodgers are just barely behind Tampa Bay for the second best record in baseball. So the challenging thing for our Rockies is that if we don't end up winning the division and quite possibly having the best record in the National League and home field advantage throughout the playoffs, it's very possible that the alternative to that is having the second or third best record in baseball and still needing to play in a wild card series. So hopefully we'll be able to avoid that fate and deliver the Rockies, as I mentioned, a 6th straight playoff appearance and potentially a 3rd divisional title. Nieves leading the National League with 25 homers and 77 ribbies, so he is halfway to having led the league in both of those categories in 3 of his 4 seasons with us. Also did have an 18-game hitting streak earlier this season. None of our pitchers are listed among the tops of the leaderboards in the National League. Take a quick look at our team statistics before we get into the individuals. The 51-32 record, just a game above Pythagorean expectations. Mentioned that we bounced back from that good but not great May with an 18-10 record in June, and we've split the first 2 games here in July. The offense remains outstanding, first in the National League in runs scored, and we are in the top 5 in every primary offensive category. The pitching is also moving in a better direction since the last time we checked in. We've improved to 6th in the league in runs allowed. Once again, our bullpen ERA is outstanding, ranking 1st in the league. Starters have still been hit and miss. The loss of Martinez definitely hasn't helped. 11th in the league in starters ERA. but overall still third in the league in earned run average and sixth in runs allowed. So we're generally in the top half of most pitching categories, the exceptions being starters, ERA, and walks, where we have been perennially the most generous team, or one of the most generous teams in baseball, in terms of providing free passes, which absolutely infuriates me. But since this is not really a staff at this point yet that I have built organically, hopefully that will be something that we improve in the future as more guys that I have drafted or signed, who hopefully have somewhat better control, start producing for our major league team. And as we close in on the trade deadline, given that we are a win now team, we're going to do our annual mid-year roster review and start figuring out if there's any areas that we might be able to improve. Pitching-wise, I mentioned that Martinez is on the IL with an unknown return, and the left-handed reliever Drew Summers, who was injured in our last episode, is close to getting back and hopefully helping us. So we do have, in theory, some help on the way. Isaiah Shader, who has become our number one starter this year with injuries to Jesus Luzardo and Martinez, 7-4 record, although the ERA of 4.88 is rather high. Still has a 1.4 WAR, so he's almost on track to deliver close to the WAR that he did a year ago, but doing it while giving up an extra earned run a game compared to what he did in 2030. Braden Nett, who led the National League with 18 wins a year ago, 6-6 this year, so he's already lost more games than he did all of last season. The ERA has climbed to 4.78. Still a 1.2 WAR on the season, still a FIP minus that's in positive territory, so he has been respectable for us, but not fantastic. Jesus Luzardo has now pitched 8 games since he came back from the injury that cost him the first month plus of the season. 2-3 record with an ERA of close to 7. He had won 17 games for us each of the last 2 years, was our clear-cut number one starter since we signed him as a free agent after the 2026 season. But his stuff is definitely getting less impressive as he heads towards his mid-30s. We do have a team option for $12 million for him for next year. 4 or 5 months ago, I would have thought we were certain to exercise that. Now, I am not so sure. Andrew Painter positively after a brutal first year in Colorado when he was 6-13 with an ERA of close to 5 and some well-publicized struggles during the playoffs, is having a much better second season. 5-4 record has cut the ERA down to 3.59, and his WAR of 1.3 is already more than he put up in his first season with the Rockies. And then Kumar Rocker has served as a fifth starter for us at times this year and also worked out of the bullpen. We traded to rent him from Boston earlier this year. He's in the final year of his contract. We're just looking for someone who could be a fifth starter for us, and he has filled that role well. 6-3 record with a 3.52 ERA and a 1.3 WAR that is identical to Mr. Painter's. Turning to that outstanding bullpen, and obviously as we've talked about, Rocker has helped us out of the pen as well. Closer Wellington Herrera, 18 saves and an ERA of 2.05 this year. Doesn't look like he's going to lead the league in saves like he did a year ago when he had over 50. And he's only been slightly above replacement level this year. Looking at his skill set with that outstanding stuff, the ground ball tendencies, and a great ability to keep the ball in the park, would hope that he can be even more productive over the second half of the year than he was over the first half. The right-handed reliever Gregory Santos, who we chose to bring back on a $5 million team option this past offseason, having another nice year for us. 2.54 ERA over 28 1/3 innings pitched. Luke Little, who we signed before he hit free agency when we had some money freed up after we traded away Chandler Simpson. Hasn't really lived up to the contract, unfortunately. ERA of close to 5, so almost 3 runs higher than it was a year ago. Does have 38 strikeouts in 26 innings pitched, but he's also walked 18 batters. Ultimately has been above replacement level. His FIP minus and his Sierra are both in pretty good territory. So given his skill set, the hope is that he'll be better going forward. I think it's conceivable that that 339 BABIP may come down over the second half of the season. Justin Gibson, former fourth-round pick who has become a very important reliever for us these last 2 seasons. 2.74 ERA over 46 innings pitched with 58 strikeouts. Although he is a setup man like Santos and Little, we also will allow the manager to use him in a stopper role from time to time, which is why he's been a higher volume pitcher than those other 2. Ryan Featherston, former 8th-round pick of ours in 2026, has split the year between the majors and the minors. He's actually had 2 brief stints to the minors, even though he's only pitched 1 game there. 4.67 ERA over 17 1/3 innings pitched. If and when the likes of Summers and Martinez are ready to come back, possible that Featherston will find himself back on the Colorado to Albuquerque shuttle. Bobby Miller has had some injury issues this year, but he's been much better than he was a year ago. 3.67 ERA over 34 1/3 innings pitched. He's basically been replacement level this year rather than well below replacement level, which is what he did a year ago. Lefty Joe Rock has spent some time in the rotation for us when we've had some injuries. Pretty effective season again from him. 3.68 earned run average over 73 1/3 innings pitched. So the veteran lefty's done a nice job for us. And then the youngster Cole Klecker has served as a long reliever for us throughout the season. Pitched 44 2/3 innings at this point with an ERA of just over 4, and he's been a bit above replacement level. So as always, we could use a big-time starter if one happens to become available. But with the potential returns of Martinez and Summers, hopefully not too far away, and the fact that we have improved this team that plays half of its games in Colorado to having the 6th best runs allowed in the National League, I don't think there's a urgent need for us to completely mortgage the future to bring on some pitching help. We'll turn now to our everyday players who have combined to give us really good defense with the best offense in the National League. One guy who hasn't contributed offensively is our backup catcher, Juan Flores, who we picked up in a trade with the Angels. We actually use him as our starter against left-handed pitching, and unfortunately, he has not done much for us offensively. Hit a .188 in 85 at-bats. He still has been above replacement level thanks to his good defense, given that his ratings against left-handed pitching aren't much worse than Drew Romo's, and Romo is much more effective against right-handed pitching than Flores is. We have been using them in a platoon role to just artificially give Romo his days off, or most of his days off, whenever we happen to be playing left-handed pitching. But it would certainly help if Flores could get that batting average over the Mendoza line, given that we're trying to put him in a situation to be facing the pitchers that he should be somewhat more successful against. Romo having another good season, and 303 batting average through 218 at-bats here as we get close to the All-Star break. 6 homers, 29 ribbies. He's also stolen 6 bases. So he's been an above-average offensive player with the 106 OPS plus and 105 weighted runs created plus. And he's put up a 2.2 WAR on the season as he remains a premier defensive catcher. Charlie Condon, the first baseman in a platoon role, playing against left-handed pitching primarily, and Condon making about $1.5 million this year, set to make over $4 million next year in arbitration. Condon is a guy who was considered the top prospect in the Rockies organization when we took this team over in 2025. And unfortunately, he has never really lived up to expectations, and certainly seeing it this year, hitting just a .186 in 102 at-bats. Does have 6 homers and 14 ribbies because he is, in theory, a proficient major league hitter against left-handed pitching, which is what he's most often facing. But it hasn't showed up on the field this year with just a 58 WRC plus, and he has been below replacement level. Similar to the situation at catcher, though, the more important side of our first base platoon is having a monster season. That is the youngster Ryan Stone, first-round pick out of UVA back in 2028. All he's doing is hitting .311 in 280 at-bats, 16 doubles, 5 triples, and 16 home runs, 58 runs scored. He's driven in 54, adds up to a 940 OPS, a 146 WRC plus, and he's 2.2 wins above replacement. He is only playing or only starting regularly against right-handed pitching because he has some of the most extreme splits that I've seen in this version of the game. He is a borderline silver slugger type hitting profile, and you can see it in his statistics when he's playing against right-handed pitching. But he is a guy who we anticipate will continue to struggle pretty significantly against left-handed pitching. We kind of knew that was the case with him when we signed him to an extension, 10 years, average of just under $6 million a season. We do have team options when he gets into his 30s towards the end of that contract. Pretty much anticipated he was going to be a platoon guy for us. As we mentioned, right now he's a platoon at first base, but he's actually a guy who, when we look at his ratings, we think could be a more than acceptable left fielder and could also play center or right field for us if we needed him to. So a lot of options for him in the coming years. He could also end up a DH against right-handers for us down the line, but Stone producing very well for us this year. Marcelo Meyer having a nice offensive season, 281 average. He's basically been a league average offensive player. Has put up a 1.3 WAR for us. 22 doubles already here as we sit on July 4th, year after tying for the National League lead with 7 triples. And Joey Ortiz is a guy we picked up in that trade for Chandler Simpson that we mentioned. He was brought on to give us some depth in the infield due to some injuries. He's been starting a little bit against right-handers in addition to the role we envisioned for him starting every day against left-handers and having a super infield utility type role for us. Hitting .253 with 9 homers and 178 at-bats. So he's put up a 110 WRC plus for us and a 1.1 WAR. Through spring training and some activities during the season, we've also gotten him more proficient at second and third base than he was when we first brought him over in that trade. Guy who's had some injury issues and also has had a down year has been Adail Amador. The 28-year-old hitting just .241 in 174 at-bats. No home runs yet after hitting 16 a year ago, and only 3 steals after stealing 16 a year ago. He's been caught 6 out of the 9 times he's tried to run this year. You can see that his speed has definitely regressed. Only a 72 WRC plus, and he's basically been a replacement level player. Hoping when we look at his bat that he'll be more productive in the second half of the season. But he is a guy who is potentially headed to free agency, and with his performance this year, it's looking potentially more likely that he will not be a long-term member of the Colorado Rockies. And last, but certainly not least, among our infielders is the shortstop Ezekiel Tovar. He missed all of last year with an injury, came back, and we thought he was going to be close to the guy that he previously was. So we did sign him to a 5-year, $116 million extension this past offseason once he was finally healthy. And not exactly the guy that he's been in the past. Basically just a slightly above average offensive player. Batting average is .288. Does have 18 doubles, 9 homers, 12 stolen bases. But only a 2 WAR on the season. So he's on pace for about a 4 WAR this year, which would be the worst that he's had since 2025. Still potentially a very important player for us going forward. Still an excellent defensive shortstop, good influence in the clubhouse, and a bat that is certainly useful, but he had several years for us where his bat was much more than useful. And hoping that perhaps we'll get a little more offensively out of Tovar over the second half of the season. And the young outfielder, Christian Arguelles, spent some time on the IL for us earlier this year, unfortunately, but he has been productive when he's been in the lineup. He's our left fielder against right-handed pitching, and he's hit .308 in 143 at-bats. So he's put up a 126 WRC plus and a 1.1 WAR, with the fact that his batting average has been around or over 300 throughout the year. When he did come back from that injury, we took some advice from Holdor and moved Dean West out of the leadoff spot. West hitting just .206 on the year. He did have a 3 home run game just a week or two ago. 7 home runs, 31 ribbies, and 272 at-bats. Well below offensive player with a 58 WRC plus, well below average offensive player. Still replacement level overall, thanks to his defense and his good speed. Don't know that West is ever going to be a huge part of our team with all of the young outfielders we have on the way, but for the time being, he is still likely our most gifted center fielder, assuming that we don't want to put a ton of wear and tear on the young outfielder, Kevin Roberts Jr., who we view as our future franchise. So we've been playing Roberts Jr. at center field against left-handed pitching, but letting him get a little less wear and tear by playing him at right field against right-handed pitching. Trent Clausen is in the platoon with Christian Arguelles, although position-wise they play different positions in the outfield. They essentially split playing time, with Clausen playing primarily against left-handed pitching. He has been a league average offensive player for us, even though he has just a .229 batting average. 5 doubles and 5 homers and 96 at-bats will certainly help with that. So he's been slightly above replacement level. The former 24th overall pick out of Oregon State looks more like a useful major league player with a good personality and really good speed, rather than someone that will be building around for the long term, unfortunately. We've already talked about the monster year that Gus Nieves is having. Already has 100 hits on the season, scored 62 runs in addition to the league-leading 77 ribbies. 3.2 WAR for him. Mentioned that he's trying to lead the league in homers and ribbies for a 3rd time in 4th seasons. And if he keeps playing the way that he has, perhaps he can add a 3rd Silver Slugger, a 3rd All-Star appearance, or perhaps even a 2nd Most Valuable Player award. And last, but hopefully not least, among our position players is the hopeful future franchise, Kevin Roberts Jr., 5th overall pick of ours in 2026, the number 5 prospect in baseball. Looks like a potential 5-tool player, particularly if he reaches his peak in terms of his hitting skill. Hasn't been a particularly fruitful rookie year for him. 244 average, 11 doubles, 2 triples, 7 home runs in 279 at-bats. Has stolen 8 bases, but OPS just below 700, 86 WRC plus, and he's barely been above replacement level. He's holding his own at the major league level, but certainly looking at his skill set, would hope that he is a more productive player in the second half of the season than he has been in this first half of the year. I would assume that the truth for Kevin Roberts Jr., based on his ratings and his potential and the fact that he still is only 22 years old, is somewhere between the 86 WRC plus that he's put up this year and the 172 WRC plus he put up in the month of September for us last season. So as we think about the team offensively, mentioned that we've got the most productive offense in the National League at this point. Certainly if you think about the right-handed hitting side of some platoons with Flores and Condon, those are weaker spots for us. The hope is that Adile Amador, Dean West, and Kevin Roberts Jr., and even Trent Clausen, hopefully 2 or 3, or in a perfect world 4 of those guys end up having better second halves than they had as far as first halves. It's also conceivable that Ezekiel Tovar might be better offensively. So I don't think there's any huge and glaring holes on the team. With the position players healthy again, we've got Cole Carrig back down in AAA, as well as Brendan Tunick, the outfielder. So we do have some decent talent there that has spent some time in the majors with us this season if we felt like we really needed to supplement our roster. We will certainly keep an eye on what's available in the trade market as we continue to move forward here in the month of July. We've got money to bring on some help. I guess that's the one benefit of the fact that we did eventually get a bump in our budget up to tied for 22nd in baseball this year, but it didn't happen until the preseason began in January, so we really didn't have big-time free agents that we could spend it on. So we boosted our scouting and player development to, I think, the best levels we've ever had them at in this playthrough, certainly the best levels in these past few seasons. And even doing that, we definitely have some money to take on a contract or two if we can find the pieces that we think might help us ensure that we hold on to the division title and hopefully also end up with the best record in the National League and the best record in baseball, hopefully, for a second straight season. And with the mid-season review done and finally getting ourselves and the series fully caught up, time to start moving on with the next week or so of action. We've got 3 games at home against Cincinnati following the off day yesterday, and then we'll have an off day on Monday before we go on the road at Houston and at San Francisco, and then we will get to the draft and we'll take a look at the potential draft class and our options available for us before we finish up the episode. Those of you who have followed us closely, particularly in the comments to recent episodes, will note that we've been concerned about the accuracy that we've been able to get in OOTP 26 after we had turned off the draft combine. We did turn the draft combine back on, and we have fortunately gotten to a higher level of scouting accuracy on a lot of players. But as we talked about, our goal when we thought we were going to have a smaller budget was to keep the scouting budget the same as it was a year ago, to kind of hopefully have a more apples to apples comparison as to whether the reactivation of the scouting combine allowed us to potentially get to higher accuracy on selected players. But we weren't going to ignore the extra money we have, so we've ultimately put significantly more into scouting, moving us from under 2 times baseline that we had budgeted to over 2 times baseline in terms of scouting, which is, we'll see when we get into the scouting reports in a week or so has allowed us to get to very high scouting accuracy on a good chunk of the top players available in the pool. So much more accurate in our scouting this year, which hopefully will help us. But unfortunately, we're going to be picking late in the draft because although we ended up falling in the World Series and not winning at all a year ago, we still did have the best record in baseball. And we split our first 2 games at home against Cincinnati. Some more good news. Drew Summers ready to begin a rehab assignment. He has been out since late May, so he's missed about 6 weeks with that strained shoulder. So we'll hopefully give him an opportunity to relieve a couple of times down in AAA before we bring him back up. As I noted earlier, Ryan Featherston and possibly Cole Klecker are the 2 most likely players to be headed down to Albuquerque if there's not another injury between now and when we think Mr. Summers is ready to rejoin us. And not a great start to the month of July for us. We ended up losing 2 out of 3 to Cincinnati, so our record for the month falls to 2-5. That said, Dean West absolutely raking, hit 500 over the past week. 10 home runs, including the 4 home runs mentioned earlier that he had 3 in 1 game. So he's got his batting average up to 215 at this point, but still not a scintillating offensive performer for us quite yet. And it's been an uninspiring start to the month of July for us, but as we mentioned, we had a even worse start in the month of June, and that all ended up well. But 3-5 record in our first 8 games of this month in July. So as we sit here preparing for the first-year player draft, we're now in a flat-footed tie with the Rockies, or with the Dodgers, who have won 3 in a row. So we are in that situation where the winner of the National League West looks like a team that will have home field advantage potentially throughout the major league playoffs, and at this point, certainly throughout the National League playoffs, while the team that doesn't win the division ends up in a wild card series. I guess the positive thing for us is that it's a 2-team race in the division, with the Giants having fallen to 11.5 behind and the Padres falling to 13.5 behind. As we get ready for the draft, Nieves continues to lead the league in homers and ribbies with 28 and 81, respectively. And I mentioned earlier that is the team that had the best record in the regular season a year ago. We've got the final pick in the first round, so we will not be on the board until number 35. No supplemental picks for us this year, so we're going to be picking towards the end of every round in this draft, and no extra picks for us to take advantage of. The good thing is that, as we've noted, we do have more money available than we budgeted for in the draft. So if there is a impossible to sign player, or even just someone who's looking for way over slot who's available in, say, the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th round, we potentially will have the money to take a flyer on somebody that perhaps is more talented than their ultimate draft spot, but in a situation where there's just not too many teams that can potentially afford their borderline exorbitant or extortionate demands. And we've simmed ahead to our 35th pick in this 2031 first-year player draft. And as we often try to do, we will take a look at the pool and then finish up the episode and hopefully get some help over the next day or so from the Worldwide Scouting Department with some recommendations on where you think we should head in this draft. Our scout has 4 key recommendations. One is the shortstop Ken Griffin, high school senior, bonus demand well below slot. We think he can be an outstanding contact hitter, pretty average everywhere else. Good speed, but pretty awful base running instincts, to be quite honest. Looks like he could be a useful defensive player. We're up to very high scouting accuracy on him, although we see medium development risk. Looking at the OSA, they're not quite as constructive on him as even we are, at least in terms of his bat. But certainly a player to think about. Starting pitcher, another high schooler, Matt Stream, 18-year-old left-hander. We think his stuff could be absolutely electric with good movement on his pitches and even potentially above-average control. He's got a potential 4-pitch arsenal, but to get there he's going to have to do a lot of work on not just a changeup, but a slider and a splitter. His fastball already in the low 90s, and we think it can get up to the mid-90s. Really good stamina, and he's outstanding at holding on runners. He's committed to Cornell University, so could be an interesting high school pitcher to think about. Second baseman Jeff Cheshire, like the durability for the youngster, looks like a absolutely awful defensive player. Looking at his ratings, he looks like he is a first base / DH type. Love the combination of the high adaptability, work ethic, and baseball IQ. Poor base running instincts, a bad bunter. The contact looks like it could be an issue. Looks like in a best case scenario, he's someone who's, in a best case scenario, he's striking out less than 200 times a season if he's an everyday player, which is absolutely brutal. But we do think that the home run power and his ability to draw walks could be borderline incredible. And then the final recommendation from our scout, another middle infielder, the second baseman, Justin Van Ostren. Looks like a useful defensive player, like the adaptability and work ethic. Good contact and a pretty well-balanced bat. Other than that, looking for slot. Certainly think the 18-year-old who's committed to Sacramento State could be an interesting player for us to think about. Taking a look at the mock draft and some players who were expected to go. We already talked about Griffin. The highest rated guy on the board according to the mock draft is actually another middle infielder, shortstop William Cerrone. Not quite as good defensively as some of the other players we've talked about. Somewhat similar offensive profile, though, with potentially really good contact and then gap power, home run power, and eye that are meh to average. A few other guys who were expected to be taken by now. Jeff Cheshire, we've already talked about, but 3 other players. Another middle infielder and shortstop, Kei Ono, and another guy with that very similar profile, potentially outstanding contact and not that great at anything else. Looks like an interesting defensive player. Another guy who was already expected to be off the boards, starting pitcher Brian Stoops, 22-year-old out of New Mexico State University. Don't love some of the personality traits. Mind tends to wander, low leadership, loyalty, and financial ambition. Does have decent stamina. Stuff in his movement aren't far off major league quality. He throws in the mid to high 90s. A little bit worried about his control. Does potentially have a 6-pitch arsenal, but certainly a lot of work to get that arsenal up and running. But given that I haven't been blown away by any of the candidates that I've seen so far, Stoops certainly feels like someone who could be in the mix. And another middle infielder, Mike Diaz, a little bit of a different profile, one of the worst defensive players that we've seen among the middle infielders, but he's durable, and in addition to outstanding contact, potentially outstanding gap power as well, combined with really good speed. Not going to draw many walks, and probably a 15 homer kind of guy if he reaches his full potential. So I can't say that there's anyone that I'm in love with at this point, but there are certainly options out there. Two guys that are pretty prominent in the draft pipeline include another starting pitching prospect, Dan Patterson. High leadership, loyalty, and work ethic. Think he can get to the mid to high 90s in terms of his velocity. Potential 5-pitch arsenal, and for an 18-year-old, his curve, his splitter, and his cutter are not too far off major league quality. Think that stuff could be exceptional. The movement and control, both more in the average range at his peak. Chris Bird, another high school pitcher. Personality will probably keep me from taking him in the first round, with low work ethic, high financial ambition, low leadership, low loyalty, but think he can get close to 100 on the radar gun. Potential 3-pitch arsenal for the youngster Mr. Bird. And we'll finish off the episode by doing a more fulsome look at the draft pool. And some of the players we've already talked about, check in on one final time and investigate a few others as well. Tim Harvey looks like a reliever. The stamina is going to be borderline to start, and he'd need to add another pitch. But we do think that his fastball and slider could both be exceptional. So I don't see him being a first round selection. Interesting that guy from Fountain Valley, California, is known as the Catskill Wild Man, because last I knew the Catskills were in New York, but perhaps there's also some Catskill Mountains out in California. Matt Stream, we already talked about him. Pretty interesting prospect for a high schooler. He would definitely be on my short list from this very cursory and very initial review of things. Alex Casares, another relief pitcher, like the ground ball tendencies. Think his stuff could be absolutely filthy. Quite concerned about the prospective lack of control that we anticipate Tripod having. We already talked a little bit about Chris Bird. Don't necessarily love the personality, but still looks like a interesting high school pitching prospect. Brian Gable, another high school starting prospect. Another guy who looks like he could be an interesting pitcher if he reaches his full potential. $5.5 million demand from Gable is a bit higher than some of the others. Scott Kennerly, starter out of York College in York, Nebraska. So only a fair competition level there. Some real negative personality traits with the low leadership, work ethic, and baseball IQ. Doesn't seem too far off major league quality. Not looking for a ton of money, but think that the profile between the negative personality traits and the not so great competition level he's faced, along with the fact that his demand is a bit low for a potential first rounder, makes me think he may not be the way that we would go. Wasn't going to bother checking in on the relievers that I've looked at offline, but I guess we might as well talk about all of the guys that we see with 65 potential. So we'll move back a step to Michael Hinden, high school pitcher out of Thurman, New York, left-hander. Not great stamina, but potentially ridiculous stuff, but potentially ridiculous bad control of the strike zone for Mr. Hinden, which is why I wasn't even going to mention him. But in an effort to be somewhat fulsome, we'll still talk about him. Starting pitcher Brian Stoops, we already talked about, out of New Mexico State. One of the more interesting pitching prospects out there, in my view. And then last but not least, Jimmy Yielding out of Mill Creek, Washington. Really good stamina, okay at holding on runners, like the high adaptability. Don't love the low leadership and high financial ambition. Ground ball tendencies, think he can get the fastball up to the mid to high 90s. Potential 4-pitch arsenal, although we don't have high hopes for that screwball. but ultimately think that his stuff, his movement, and his control could all be a bit above average. The OSA likes him a bit more than we do. Not looking for a ton of money. I think on a first view, probably if I was going to go with a college player, it's probably Kennerly. And if I was going to go with a high school player, it's probably Matt Stream among the pitchers. But of course, it's not all about the pitchers, and there are some interesting position players to talk about. A lot of middle infielders, as we've touched upon. At least according to Potential, our scout likes Ken Griffin the best, and definitely get it. Solid defensively and great contact with potentially good at everything else in terms of the bat. I think he could be a interesting infielder to bring into the organization. First baseman Brandon Carter, a guy we haven't talked about. Pretty well-balanced bat, but does not bring anything of particular value to the table defensively. Also looking for $8 million, which at this point is well above slot. So he seems to be a guy who could linger for a bit. Second baseman Jeff Cheshire, talked about him. Love the durability, love the personality. Don't like the defense at all, and really don't like the number of strikeouts and his struggle to make contact. But with the durability, plus the power, plus the eye, plus the personality, they does check some boxes. Shortstop Mike Diaz, like the durability with him. The contact, gap, power, speed combination is interesting. First baseman Jonas Herpe, really interesting home run power, better defensively than the other first baseman that we looked at. Decent contact, although he's going to strike out a sickly amount of times. Not good to the gaps. It's boom or bust with him. Going to be out of the park or a weak little single, it seems like. One of the slowest players I think I've ever seen. Does look to have a slightly above average batting eye if he did reach his full potential. Kei Ono, already talked about him, shortstop with that good contact, meh, everything else profile that we've seen with a few players. Billy Skelton, second baseman with the other profile that we've seen in a few players in this draft with the poor contact, a sickening number of strikeouts combined with really good power and really good eye. James Stangler, one of the more well-balanced bats among the middle infielder, potentially above average power and eye with decent contact and gap power. Less interesting defensively than some of the other players. Do like the high work ethic. San Diego State product, is young for a college player, 21 years old, but not incredibly developed for a college player either at this point. Looking for $4 million. The last of the guys with 65 potential that we'll talk about is a second baseman, Justin Van Ostran. We already talked about him, another one of the strong contact guys who's kind of okay in everything else. Do like the high adaptability and work ethic from him. A lot of guys with 60 potential. We'll just talk about 3 college guys who might be closer to being able to help us in the majors. Third baseman Mike Aguilera out of Oklahoma City University. Only a fair level of competition, pretty low demand. Looks like the gap power in the eye could both be excellent for him. Pretty average in terms of the contact and the home run power. Not a particularly compelling defensive prospect with that profile. Center fielder Noel Callies out of the University of Nebraska, Omaha. Solid defensive player, decent speed, like the high work ethic. I think the contact and the gap power could both be well above average. Expect that the home run power in the eye likely both end up below average, however. And then the last college prospect, another outfielder, center fielder, Andy Schmaltz, another guy who looks solid defensively, decent speed, like the durability, not looking for a ton of money coming out of CSU Dominguez Hills. The contact and gap power, speed combination, potentially exceptional. The home run power and eye combination, potentially very poor. So I will certainly be spending more time with this draft pool offline to hopefully ultimately make a good decision tomorrow. In the meantime, if you've got thoughts on what we should do, probably a year where I can be influenced more than others by the Worldwide Scouting Department, because my initial view is that I don't love anybody. I think if I had to choose a player right now, and those of you who have followed me over the years probably won't be surprised by this given my history, but if I had to choose a player right now, I think I would be intrigued by the young high school starting pitcher, Matt Stream. Does have a skill set that looks very impressive if he reaches his full potential. We are very high in terms of our scouting accuracy on him. Medium development risk, does have high adaptability. Looking for pretty close to slot at this point. Think he could be a outstanding lefty if he reaches his full potential, and a good solid major league arm if he reaches 90% of his potential. But definitely don't feel like Stream is a clear pound the table type guy for us to go after. And obviously, as I noted, I'll be spending more time thinking about this, and also thinking about any thoughts from the Worldwide Scouting Department on this pool of players available for us at pick number 35 that I can't claim I'm particularly excited about. But given that we won't be picking again until the end of the second round, which is different from the last few seasons when we've always had a supplemental pick, probably not going to get too involved in strategic thinking about we take this guy first and hope this other guy falls to us in the second round, ultimately with the 35th pick in the draft, and then not picking again until the 32nd pick of the second round, and having 6 supplemental picks also in there. I think we just take the guy that we ultimately like the most, whoever that is, with this pick. And we will find out who that will end up being in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.